Alrighty, welcome back to A Journey to King's Cross, a Harry Potter book podcast. We just finished off with the most recent chapter, and I am trying to remember...
The Sorting Hat.
Chapter 7.
Yeah,
The Sorting Hat.
A relatively short chapter by all means and stuff, if not a memorable one. Finally, of course, getting to Hogwarts and going through the sorting ceremony and everything. And of course, we finally get a proper introduction to McGonagall herself and black hair. No comment about gray. She's definitely portrayed as much younger in the book and everything than she is in the actual movies. I mean, not that I would actually change the actress.
Oh, Maggie Smith is perfection for McGonagall.
You know, it's weird. I don't know why, but I've always pictured her that she would have been a redhead.
Really?
In her younger years. She's Scottish.
I mean, to be fair, it's
racist?
Usually...
It's a little racist.
Usually like... It's usually the Irish that are oftentimes associated with red hair, but, I can see it.
Well, the Scottish were too, I thought.
No,
But I guess the Irish were more commonly...
No, that's the stereotype.
Yeah.
I
thought it was both.
I'm sorry,
No,
I just
Scottish
zoned out
usually...
trying to visualize the differences between Scotland and Ireland, and I'm coming up empty.
They're both green.
Fair, we've never been to either of them.
That's fair.
Ireland has its own island, and Scotland is mad that it's part of England, technically.
Listen.
Not really. They did have the opportunity to leave, and they didn't. So it's kind of like, at this point...
I meant physically.
Listen,
It's a marriage of convenience at this point in time.
I am Scottish and Irish. My maiden name is Mackenzie, and I couldn't tell you if it hails from Scotland or Ireland now.
I think Mackenzie is more Scottish.
See, I couldn't tell you.
But I'm also basing that off of Outlander, so...
I can't remember anymore. That tells you how great my memory is at trying to figure this stuff out. I don't remember.
Okay, I'm going to get us back on
Harry Potter.
Get the train back on track.
I do like a lot of the lore implications that have been brought up in later in terms of, the hat stall and, which characters that we didn't see sorted into their houses, which houses they were in. Obviously, we've got, what's his name from book 4, the Junior. Barty Crouch Jr. and stuff. There has been some debates and stuff along those lines of whose house he's in. Most people usually settle on Slytherin and everything.
He's a Death Eater.
Well, if he's anything like...
But that's so easy, though. It's like, just because he's a Death Eater doesn't mean he was in Slytherin.
To be fair, it's there really is no winning that argument, but it is one of those things where I like the discourse around it, even though I know I'm never going to get an actual answer for a character that only basically shows up. To be fair, I feel like out of all of the Death Eaters, he actually seemed to have some freaking sense in his brain, basically, and also the ambition to do things, considering so many of the other characters were more willing to just, do whatever Voldemort says, regardless of whether or not it's to their own benefit, Even though, in some ways, he was one of the more fanatical ones. I really do wish that they could have kept him around a little bit longer. I feel like he would have been a very interesting, reoccurring antagonist, right up there with Bellatrix and Voldemort himself, if allowed to continue, but...
True.
Digressing. Another one I really like is the implications on Hagrid, as some people have implied that Hagrid might have actually been in Slytherin based off of the comments and stuff in area of where he was found in book 2 and everything with the whole spider
in the dungeon.
thing. Yeah, seems kind of odd to keep to be in that location of all places for him.
Fair, I guess, but it was a good place to keep a spider.
To be fair,
it's dark.
It's a Hogwarts castle. I feel like you could keep a spider in any location.
But Hagrid always came across to me as more of a Hufflepuff, and we know that their common room is towards the bottom of the castle by the kitchens.
Fair. But there are, I've heard some people make some arguments and stuff along those lines. I'm not saying that we're going to have or need to have an argument over who was in what houses and stuff. That's not what I'm trying to incite.
Just that it was interesting to see the
implications and stuff, and the fact that some people have made arguments over the nature of who's in what. And of course, we get Ravenclaw, who has, as far as I'm aware, not had any major characters that were super cool or interesting actually associated with it outside of
not this year.
Outside of what's his face? Gilderoy Lockhart, yeah. I know I'm fairly confident he's been confirmed to have been in Ravenclaw.
Yeah, Ravenclaw.
But, great showing. A guy who is incapable of any of the most basic of fucking spells and stuff along those lines. Yeah, Ravenclaw definitely needs their representation. I mean, I don't understand why they had to go with a Hufflepuff for the Fantastic Beasts series of movies, considering we already have a couple of people that are from Hufflepuff that are already pretty well known.
We have a confirmation. Pottermore, which I will take as the official, this is the answer, because J.K. Rowling was the one who gave all the information. Hagrid was a Gryffindor.
Really?
That seems easy.
It does.
Good guy, Gryffindor.
Too
Easy. Who else was somebody we weren't sure about their house?
Barty Crouch Jr.
Anyway, let's see here. We also... Yeah, I heard that too. Alright. What? We, I think to be perfectly honest, there was a couple of, like, lore comments and stuff about, like, some of the words that Dumbledore said. Blubber, nitwit, layabout and stuff.
Blubber, I meant tweak. What the hell is that supposed to mean?
Some of them are very, very loosely considered, but the ongoing theory is that his 4 words that he uses are supposed to be the opposite of what the actual houses are supposed to represent. An oddman would be someone who doesn't belong. I think that was associated with Hufflepuff.
Nitwit would be the opposite of smart, so that would be Ravenclaw.
Exactly.
Blubber?
If you consider cowardly or lazy.
I don't know what tweak would mean.
Or the opposite of a jock, which is kind of the Gryffindor house, to be perfectly honest.
Okay, so then what would...
Tweak would be Slytherin by default. Someone who's, like, twitchy, nervous, not very assertive, or, like, ambitious.
Which is not very useful when you're trying to be cunning.
Yeah.
So, fun fact of another misconception of when I early on read the books. I was remembering this. I was very confused about how it was written. It makes more sense when I think about it more, but, like, when I first read it, it was very confusing because it said, when Neville had to give the hat back to MacDougal Morag, the next paragraph is immediately, Malfoy swaggered forward when his name was called. So I was very confused as a child when I first read it, because it made it sound like Malfoy wasn't his actual name, and it was a nickname. So I thought his name was MacDougal Morag. I'm like, that's a big difference. Like, is Draco just because you think you're cool? Like, no, but as an adult, obviously, it makes more sense because Malfoy would have come after MacDougal, I guess.
Isn't Malfoy, like... I remember hearing it somewhere. I'm not sure if this is actually confirmed, that Malfoy's... Like, the Malfoy name was actually a translation of shit. So his name was actually translated into Dragon Dung or something along those lines officially. I think I've seen that in some fan fictions and everything.
Now I'm going to have to look that up.
Fair enough.
That would be awful. And
it's hilarious. Though, to be perfectly honest, Crabbe and Coyle do not fit into the Slytherin houses. They have neither ambition or cunning. That's the thing about some of the houses, is I'm fairly confident that it's just sort of like sometimes the freaking sorting hat is just sort of like, okay, yeah, fine, I'll put you there because you want to be there and you don't technically fit anywhere else. Though, to be fair, I could even put them in Hufflepuff because they have absolutely no loyalty. You know,
right?
Because they end up betraying Malfoy in the final book and everything. Because
really, the only thing that they had that fit the House of Slytherin is that they were purebloods.
And that's
theoretically
that's sad. Like that's depressing. That's really the only thing they actually had in common. But it goes to show, if your loyalty is tied to your money and status and stuff, once those dry up, loyalty's gone.
Right. Also, according to Emmetology of behind meanings of names, sorry, I can't talk apparently, Malfoy would actually translate proper to bad faith.
A dragon in bad faith. Okay, that actually makes more sense. To be perfectly honest, of course we forget one of the most important characters that's actually introduced fully into this one, Severus Snape.
Snape. Severus Snape.
Dumbledore!
So,
in
regards to Snape, Sorry, you finish your thought first, and I'll come back with mine.
I love I love the first implication is that Harry walks into the room and Snape is glaring so fucking hard at him. He's just sort of like, I get the distinct impression you don't like me. I think in the next chapter where they actually go to potions, he actually corrects himself from not liking to outright hatred in a sense.
Absolutely, because that classic James Potter snarkiness comes out.
Oh yeah, I do have to admit though, it is kind of funny is that the term that they use for Draco Malfoy is swaggering up, which is a comment that Snape uses in a later book about how James swaggered around the castle and everything.
Oh yeah.
I do find it hilarious is that Snape is best friends with Malfoy for a good chunk of the actual series. And yet, I feel like Draco would fit the definition of how Snape described James in later books and stuff along those lines.
Well, it all has to do with perception.
Yeah.
Draco was a Slytherin, and therefore Snape favoritism. James was his arch enemy.
I do find it kind of funny in the grand scheme of things that if all that I know about Snape's history and personal trauma and past and everything, him and Harry are almost two peas in a pod. And it's one of those failings of his character that after seeing so many of Harry's bad memories and all of the horrible things he went through he never really developed that empathy towards Harry. Because I remember during the occlumency lessons and stuff, he takes a vindictive pleasure in the overall treatment Harry's gone through, as if he's validated and just sort of like, yes, the shadow of James Potter is being is being tortured in some way, shape, or form.
Wait, who's two peas in a pod?
Snape, if I'm remembering my information properly, which I could be accidentally tossing in, in fan fiction that I've read over the years and stuff. Snape was abused as a child and everything.
Oh.
He did not have a happy home life.
No, he didn't. Because his dad was not happy that his mom was a witch. Like that, I think it was like he felt like she tricked him. But I mean, I would say that that's where the similarity ends for them being similar, because Harry was a good person. He didn't find pleasure in torturing other people. Snape took pleasure in being more powerful than somebody else.
The books do make it I feel like the books do make it a habit of drawing similarities between Harry, Snape, and Voldemort in terms of their growing up and stuff.
All half-bloods, shitty upbringings. Well, Harry's 3/4 blood.
Yeah.
But either way.
But they would consider him a half-blood.
Yeah, you're full half or muggle born.
Yeah.
That's...
But you're not pure blood. Basically, They all weren't pure bloods. Shitty upbringings.
Bad family lives all around. Voldemort killed his.
That begs a good question. If Harry's considered a half-blood, when he has kids with Ginny, are their kids full-blood? Pure-blood?
I feel...
Not technically,
but...
There's a limit. You have to have so many generations above you of pure-blood ancestry. So that means Harry would technically qualify as a full-blooded wizard. He's not pure-blood, but a full-blooded wizard. That means if their kids continued to just marry other wizards and stuff... past a certain point in terms of generations, they would be considered pure blood again.
Mm. Yeah, and they'd probably even be like, well, we're technically all pure bloods, except for this weird blip from when there was a muggle born way back, but Harry was still,
Yeah.
Sorry to derail the train.
No, it's fair. This is a relatively light chapter and everything, so I don't really feel like going into, a lot of things that aren't actively touched in the book about ancestry, association, you know what I mean?
So, yeah.
Yeah, and to be perfectly honest, as much as I do not like the character of Snape, he is a fascinating character, and because of the discussion around him and stuff, it has kept the Harry Potter fandom alive in a sense because there's just so much argument and so much debate.
Oh yeah.
I still see activity on QR. I still see some activity on Facebook and stuff along those lines about people like siding with James or Snape over the course of like the series and everything. And while I can I do get bogged down in the swamp, as it were, of online nerd discourse and stuff, I can't exactly say that I don't find it happy that the fandom itself is still technically alive and well in some way, shape, or form. At least until the TV show pops off, in which case then we're going to be a very very active fandom. Though, to be fair, I am disappointed that we're getting a retread of the Harry Potter books and stuff, and not, say, like, the Marauders, like, miniseries, where we can touch on, the
other
earlier...
things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say... I was neither Team James nor Snape, really. They were both terrible characters.
What are you talking about?
What do you mean? They were both bullies to each other.
No, that's what makes, they are horrible people, in a sense.
Oh, well, yeah.
But I feel that they are great characters.
Oh, well, they're interesting characters. And, yeah, they're great as in... Great.
And, as a James apologist, I will be more than happy to talk about some of the points that you're probably forgetting about when it comes to the character.
He's biased, but at least he understands and he admits it.
Oh, I am horribly biased. As a parent and an individual and stuff, I recognize and respect James's actual good points and stuff. Because as far as I'm aware, there has been no memory indications that James was any worse than the twins when it comes to bullying or treating other people outside of Severus Snape.
That's a good point.
Which I would argue, Severus Snape, at the time of being bullied, was fully into the Death Eater Jr. group at the time. I'm terribly sorry, but as much as I like Snape as a character, if I was going to school with basically a group of neo-Nazis and stuff along those lines, I would want to throw them around myself, personally speaking. Yeah. I feel as a moral upstanding individual, it is never not okay to punch a Nazi. You know what I mean?
Never not okay. Or it's always okay to punch a Nazi.
It's never...
He was doing double negative.
Yeah. I'm being...
It
took
I'm a little tired,
but
guys.
he was a Nazi. Oh, okay.
So,
that's
but
fine.
you get the idea.
Yeah.
Not to mention, he intentionally went out of his way to get Remus a job after he left Hogwarts, because being a werewolf and everything. So he was not only taking care of his own family, he was taking care of Remus.
Sirius stayed at his house numerous times.
And he was eventually kicked out of his home, and he ended up having a home with the Potters at that point in time. He went out of his way to learn a very dangerous form of magic in order to spend time with with his werewolf friend during his more nasty nights and stuff along those lines. There's...
That's fair, but we also don't know when James officially started bullying Snape.
Apparently, if I recall correctly, they do touch on it in, the final book and stuff, where they ended up running into each other, and Snape made an offhand comment about houses, and basically, I think he made some sort of comment about Gryffindor and everything, and I think James took offense to that. And I feel like that animosity kind of was born similar to, Harry and Malfoy in a sense.
True, but, I mean...
Dumbledore does compare the characters in terms of, Harry and his issues.
Yeah, he says it's not much different than you and Mr. Malfoy. Harry never goes out of his way to bully Malfoy, though.
He doesn't exactly put it, that's true. I didn't say, it's not necessarily...
Oh, no, I'm just saying.
But there... But Harry gives it as good as he gets in quite a few occasions.
True. But Harry only retaliates, and usually on behalf of somebody else, not himself.
And to be even more fair, he's not 100% one-to-one James. I feel like James would definitely would be much more proactive when dealing with Draco in a sense.
Oh yeah.
Whereas Harry's definitely drawing more on Lily Evans' personality in a sense where it's okay, you want to go, I'll fight back and everything.
I want to get back to this chapter. There's more points I want to go over. So we get also the first instance of Harry's scar reacting, which I thought of something else because of course we know later that his scar is reacting probably to Voldemort.
Yes.
But, on the offhand, if J.K. Rowling is the great author that planned all of the books. Well,
We're not
to be debated.
I don't think you're going to be convincing anybody of that.
But on the off chance that she had more planned than people want to give her credit, than we give her credit for, it's possible that it may not have just been reacting to Quirrell as much as the fragment of Voldemort that lived in Harry reacting to Snape being alive and well and a teacher at Hogwarts.
That is an interesting theory because Harry Scar didn't react when they were at the
first
Leaky
time
Cauldron.
he saw. Well, we also thought he didn't.
We're not 100% certain.
Oh, that's
right. Yeah, they did shake
'Cause
hands. So yeah.
Yeah, he would have been able to touch him later, but
it raised.
Harry mentions looking at Quirrell after he saw, like when he saw Hagrid, that he saw Quirrell, and his Scar didn't react. So if Voldemort was there, he probably should have noticed it the minute he laid eyes on Quirrell. But it didn't react until, sure, there's the red herring of Snape being the villain.
Right.
But it didn't react until the second time because Quirrell was next to Snape. What were you going to say, though, Mitchell?
To be perfectly honest, I do believe at some point in time they did mention when it was it activates only when Voldemort is feeling a particularly strong emotion. So that's usually when it actually activates. Because to be perfectly honest, it would give away the mystery of the story, because the Harry Potter series, each book is almost a mystery novel in and of itself. If at some point in time where Harry's inside of the room with Quirrell and it activates in a sense, it'd be like, okay, it'd be kind of a giveaway.
Okay.
But the other thing is that it never actually activates around Snape again over the course of any of those classes either.
True.
So it really is sort of
it's a brief moment of intense. Well, you're right, because he would have... Why would it have done it just then? Because he would have already known that Snape was alive, because Quirrell would have had to interact with Snape before this banquet.
Yeah, I'm particularly interested that Voldemort was like finally settling down and everything, and was just allowed to there was like an emotional hiccup or something.
Or I came up with another theory about it, or not another theory, but also in relation to the intense emotions. Is it could have he noticed Quirrell before he got sorted. And then after he got sorted was when he noticed Snape, I think. What if Voldemort was angry for whatever reason that Harry wasn't in Slytherin?
That he told it no?
Because the fragment of him would have been like, no, be in Slytherin. Plus that would have made Harry even more of his equal by being in the same house. Because at the end of the chapter, Harry has a dream that the turban, which foreshadowing there... that the turban was hiding Voldemort. Man, and it even says that Harry didn't remember his dream. If only he remembered his dream better. Maybe he would have gone after the right person the whole time. But maybe it was the fragment of but he had the dream being like, no, be in Slytherin. You're supposed to be in Slytherin. It's that part of Voldemort being like...
acting up a bit.
So maybe that's just what caused the intense emotion.
One hell of a delayed reaction.
Well, I mean, otherwise Harry wouldn't be able to be in a class with Quirrell. He'd be hurting all the time.
Yeah. To be fair though, it didn't say it had to be a positive or negative emotion. It just had to be a strong one. Like Voldemort may have been like half asleep or something along those lines, and basically like became alert during that point, and basically got everything that he needed from like Quirrell's brain or whatever. Because we don't really know what it's like to have a second face on the back of your head, in a sense. Does like Voldemort have access to like Quirrell's memories and knowledge and stuff, and he's just only active some of the time in order to save his strength? Like, there's a lot of a lot of questions on how this works. Though to be perfectly honest, the Harry Potter series has always been very vague in terms of how its power scaling works, how its magic works, what makes a powerful wizard in a sense and stuff. Because we never really get
You can cast as many spells as you want.
There isn't a magic drain in a sense. It's the movement of the wand and the magic words that seem to create the spell in a sense. And you don't necessarily need either of those things in order to actually perform magic. You know what I mean? Like, is an individual, like, isn't it, like, what makes Dumbledore a great wizard is definitely a question of which has never truly been answered over the course of the series.
They just refer to him as one of the greatest wizards.
Yeah, but, like, is it because he's capable of casting, like, really powerful spells? Which, if that's the case, theoretically speaking, anybody could, you know? Considering if you just had the discipline and, like, knowledge to learn.
It also has to do with your capacity, like how much, because you're good at certain spells, your wands are better at certain magics.
That raises questions, though.
It has to do
because
with your will.
It's not, yeah, but that's never really touched on.
It's not completely, but Bellatrix does mention that when Harry wants to, if he wants to catch Crucio, he has to really mean it.
Yeah,
and
but that's
that
an
he
intent.
can do it when he's actually angry. He was able to do it.
But is that associated with all magic, or is that just that spell? Because I'm going to be honest with you, if I'm in a class and everything, I'm not going to want to look like an idiot. I'm going to want to cast that spell. So, intent would not necessarily work with all spells.
No, not with all spells, but it could have... It could affect... Like... But intent also may have to do with what emotion... Like, sure, you don't want to look like an idiot, but that may not be a good enough motivation to perform well. Or for that spell to work. It could just also not be up your... It's very, very loose. It's
a soft magic system.
It's because magic, and that's the system.
Because magic. It does bring up a good question of what makes them the greatest of their age or whatever. Because, like, at the end of the book, they start calling Hermione the greatest witch of their age.
Yeah.
But, like, what is she... I would know she's smart, but, like, what has she done that makes her so great as a first year?
Yeah, it gets
She's
even
a
more
nerd.
unusual is the sense that certain, like, wizards actually have spells that they're particularly good at. Like, Ginny goes on to be really good with the Bat
Hexes?
Bogey, like the Bat Bogey spell or something
True,
along those
but-
lines. We've never seen in action, but apparently it's one of her specialties and it's particularly nasty.
She's good at hexes.
And Harry's association with anything with the dark
Expelliarmus.
arts and stuff along those
Defense
lines.
of.
Defense
Defense.
against the dark arts is also known, stating that it's the one thing he excels in better than Hermione.
Yeah.
Which-
Plus there's other things as, like, making your own spell. We've had, which, I mean, I feel like if you just had a book of Latin, you'd be able to make whatever you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, spellcraft is another thing that's mentioned, but never really touched on in the long term, because Snape was apparently capable of creating his own spells while still at Hogwarts.
Yeah. It's very loose. Magic, because magic. Also, side note, just as a fun fact, they apparently Jell-O is a universal term for a gelatin dessert, because in the book it mentions, like, out of all the desserts, which also it just mentions just straight up strawberries for dessert. Like, I mean, that's not bad. I love strawberries, and I will.
But
eat
that's
them
a
as
random
snack.
thing.
But it's just like, as a dessert after list, because it's in the middle of trifle and Jell-O. Trifle, strawberries, Jell-O. Not gelatin, Jell-O. I'm like, all right, I guess that's just the common.
I think that Jell-O actually originally was copyrighted, but it's like Kleenex and Xerox and stuff along those lines became
It's because
so...
it's the most
commonly... It got so overused, in a sense, they lost their copyright over it.
I don't think they...
No, look it up.
Well, if you...
There are...
I'm not sure, because if you buy, like, store brand Jell-O, it's called gelatin.
No, look it up. There's... I can't... I'm not... Like, there's really, like... It's one of those, like... I know that Kleenex, Jell-O, Xerox, and a couple other things have fallen out of their copyright just because of their use.
That's what
Like,
we
the
refer to them as.
Nintendo has gone out of its way in the 90s and everything in order to remind people that Nintendo is a type of gaming system. It is not... A Nintendo is not a... like the be-all, end-all. Because there was some concerns back in the day.
Yeah, because there's the Xbox console.
Jell-O...
But it's the Sony PlayStation and then Nintendo Game Boy.
Jell-O
Nintendo
is
Switch.
a registered trademark of Kraft Heinz, still. And I think you would find... I think Kleenex is also still copyrighted, because when you buy off-brand, it's facial tissue instead. We just commonly refer to all of those products as that specific one.
Now we're on a mad hunt to figure this out.
Totally not Harry Potter related, but
No. But for anyone
be fair, it's
who's
mentioned.
listening doesn't have the book in front of them, the way they spell Jello is capital JELL dash capital O,
which is copyrighted.
which is the copyrighted version. Because when Kimmy had the book in front of her and was talking about it, and I assumed it was all lowercase one word, no dashes.
Nope. Yeah, no. But you're right. I think.
Although Kleenex is a registered trademark of the Kimberly-Clark, for many consumers, the word has been interchangeable with tissue, other brand names that have fallen victim, Google, Taser, and Xerox. Even common words like kerosene and escalators were once trademarks as well. So, yeah. 31 overall things.
You mean kerosene?
Yeah, bubble wrap, apparently. Dumpster is apparently another thing that's trademarked.
Huh.
Kleenex, escalator, thermos. Oh, that's weird. Chapstick is another one, apparently.
Oh yeah, Thermos is a
Frisbee,
brand.
So it's chapstick.
Popsicle, laundromat, Jumbotron, really? Taser, Zamboni,
I did know
aspirin,
Zamboni.
yo-yo, kerosene, TV dinner was another one apparently. Google, jacuzzi, Photoshop, also Jeep, interesting.
Oh.
Rollerblade,
Actually, no, that makes a good
Velcro.
point because we always say it's like Burt's Bees chapstick.
plexiglass.
They call it lip balm.
It's lip balm because chapstick is a thing. Like we just referred to it as, oh, I've got my
We just
my
refer
chapstick.
we
Zipper.
refer
But
to
they're-
it as a specific brand because that brand became
It's so
the most.
ubiquitous.
It either launched that project or it's just that's the most commonly
You okay?
purchased brand. We just refer to all those products as that thing.
Yeah.
Cool Whip. It's whipped topping when you buy it
Yeah.
off brand.
Well, getting back to
Okay, well,
oh.
you
Getting
get what
back to
I'm-
Harry Potter.
You get what I'm referring
No,
to.
I know what you mean. It's like we call it, we refer to it as those things even if it's not that brand.
Yeah. I've been watching a lot of 18th century cooking, and they all of it comes from England, so I'm really surprised to see that there's not, like, the 18th century puddings in here. They make a mention about rice pudding, but that's clearly a milk pudding that we as Americans are used to, but they don't make a mention.
it in later books.
They might, but I'm just surprised it wasn't here in the first.
I know that
first
in the
book.
movie Luna talks about going to get pudding. And at first I was like, I realized I thought that was just like actual pudding, but also I think they call dessert pudding sometimes.
All of their desserts are puddings, but then there's a lot of them
Not
that are
all
like
puddings are desserts.
but a lot of the puddings that they refer to are more of like a bready type of thing from what I've seen.
I do wonder how much they'll lean into the Britishisms of Harry Potter when it comes to the actual movie and stuff.
Oh, the TV show?
I mean, yeah,
That'd be cool.
Because to be fair, they kind of danced around it a little bit after a while.
Kind of
in the movie.
Americanized it a little
Yeah.
bit.
I'm kind of surprised somebody didn't show up with a gun at Hogwarts, to be perfectly honest.
You know what we should have had by now? We should have had a CPS counter. How many times does CPS need to be called? Because we need to add another one for poor Neville.
Oh boy. Getting dropped out of a window. Which I realized I used to think that he was literally holding him, but I think that he might have been using his wand to hold him. And that's like, because how would you forget you're holding somebody and like and let go just to grab some candy?
What's
A
it?
meringue. A meringue.
What is that? I thought that was a fruit.
It's a cookie.
Oh.
It's like a
He valued a cookie over his nephew's life.
They're awful, by the way. Meringues are awful because basically,
stop doing this to me.
I think what basically a meringue is, it's like a dried whipped cream.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's you take a meringue like you would put on a pie and you bake it till it's dry.
Yeah.
And they're awful and I hate them.
Yeah. They're just air from what I
To
understand.
be honest, I know for a fact that his grandma actually gets some cool moments later on and everything. I think especially some of the later books. But I do feel bad. Like, Neville's whole family sounds kind of horrible in a sense.
They really do.
I think there was just one of those families that were high expectations, especially considering later when we find out who his parents were.
True.
Both of them were Aurors, which is
They were
impressive.
Aurors and they were tortured
Into insanity.
into insanity.
I also also find it interesting that we don't have a word for the opposite of a Muggleborn yet. We don't have the word squib yet. Neville said my family thought of us all Muggle for ages.
I feel that is
Yeah.
like I think there was something else that was actually brought up in this chapter where I realized that some terms and concepts and ideas were not fully realized at this point in time. The Muggle, like
Squib came into the book too.
Yeah, I can't remember what the other thing was though. Freaking hell.
Mudbloods doesn't come up until the second book,
Yeah, that's also
which you think would show up in the first book.
a lot. It's weird that a lot of slang didn't actually pop up in the original story. It didn't until the second one and everything. Considering that this was such a British story in a sense, you'd feel like the slang aspect would have been more then. To be perfectly honest, though, she really does need to avoid slang when it comes to other nationalities because what nomage? Oh God, that was the worst freaking.
Oh yeah.
That was so bad. I'm just sort of like we would really. I feel like a lot of wizard slang would have carried over from Britain though because
You would think.
because there's a lot of things that we still call things that the British used to call things before they developed on, and with how the wizarding world seems so trapped in the past in a sense, I feel like a lot
bound
of
to nationality as much.
yeah, they haven't I will never not be amused whenever I'm told it's called football, not soccer. And I'm just sort of like, no, it was originally called soccer when it came over here to the United States. We do not change willy-nilly in order to try and impress the rest of the world. You can kindly sod off. Yeah, you guys were all sensitive about how the world perceived you and everything. We are the stubborn ones who refuse to change.
Look, man, football makes more sense about soccer than it does
I don't
about
give a
American
shit.
football. Because in American football, you only use your foot once or twice.
I mean,
She's not wrong.
yeah,
The ball almost never comes into contact with your foot, except for one player. Pretty much.
But also, what a boring name for a game.
Football.
Ball.
I mean,
But I guess-
basketball.
I was gonna say basketball.
baseball.
Yeah, I got it. I mean, at least it's not called bat ball.
Right. God, we're great at naming things, aren't we here?
To be perfectly honest, we live near a place called Waterford.
We're in Michigan, so one of our towns is Waterford, and it's just
Most of the
think
towns
all
are water.
lakes.
I think Detroit is literally just an Englicized version of port or something along those lines from France.
Grand Blanc is like the Great White or something. That's and Pontiac is some, I don't know.
That's
all
Native
of
American,
our,
if I recall correctly.
but they're all weird, pointing back to water and the way the state is.
Go back over to.
It means straight. Detroit is straight. So
Is it Detroit
because
River
the river
Strait?
used to be called. I'm not gonna. It basically means the Strait of Lake Erie in French.
Le Detroit du Lac Erie.
Isn't it pronounced Detroit?
Detroit.
We should probably do a podcast on Miraculous Ladybug, and we could really fumble into our
We
French.
could.
I don't know how much I feel like insulting the French.
Well, considering the French insult
Look,
us
now
on a
I
regular
want to do
basis.
a Ladybug podcast.
Let's do it. The French insult us all the time. Let's do it.
Yes, revenge is a dish best served cold. I just have this mental thought process and stuff along
But
those lines. The French like to mess with us because we're the stupid Americans, and we like to mess with the French because they have this image of stuck-upness.
I think it's also,
even more so than the British.
if anything, but here's the thing though, the French have every right to mess with America because they helped us with our revolution and we promised to help them with theirs and
And
we
then said
didn't.
fuck off.
Well, we did eventually get around to it in World War I and World War II.
That doesn't count. We weren't helping specifically the French. We only got involved because the other countries attacked us.
Details.
World War One, Germany attacked one of our. Well, we were told not to, but we were also selling weapons. But anyway,
We were selling to both
World
sides.
War
We were
II,
making a profit.
the Japanese attacked. We're getting way off base here.
Yeah,
Harry Potter.
Don't get too bogged down to the why. Just that it worked. We helped them out and everything. It's all part of the. You know what? We paid it back eventually. It's all good. It's all good. Though, to be perfectly honest, that is something that all of us do watch. Doing a Miraculous Ladybug rewatch and actually doing a podcast on it would probably be pretty entertaining. If for no other reason than the fact that we could roast Astrid, considering apparently how sensitive he is on Twitter.
But we should go back to Harry Potter or finish with this chapter.
Death of the author. Nothing is sacred here. I will pick on anyone and everyone, regardless of how important they're perceived to be. Because, you know what? Punching up is the only thing I can do anymore these days. Anyway, back on to...
Do you got anything else for Harry Potter?
I mean, to be perfectly honest...
I will admit, one interesting line that the Sorting Hat says is that maybe in Slytherin you'll find your real friends, like... that you can.
Oh yeah.
Oh god.
But also describe
fair,
if you find a friend in Slytherin and they're your actual.
Are they your real friends?
I couldn't help but feel that it was sung by the guy who's reading that story with a little bit of sarcasm.
Very possible.
I'm gonna be honest. I have no idea what any honest to god Slytherin would not want to be sorted into Slytherin, because if you want to be a leader. Why the hell would you put yourself in a house where you're competing with other want-to-be leaders? You'd want to be in the house with the hard workers, the friendly people, and the people that have more, you know what I mean? If I was an honest-to-God Slytherin, I'd want to be in the frickin' Hufflepuff house because of the association with followers.
Because then you can just gather all the followers to you?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's exactly why you're not put in that house. Slytherin is designed to best of the best, and to put you in contact with other powerful
networking.
Political.
It's a networking scheme.
Because here's the thing: at the end of the day, once you graduate Hogwarts, you'll gather all the Slytherins, you'll gather all the Hufflepuffs, Ravenclaws, and Gryffindors you want.
You need the networking to get up to Voldemort.
Okay, well, you won't want any Gryffindors, but
to be perfectly honest, though, it does feel like if you wanted to actually move up in the world, being in Slytherin is very counterproductive in a sense.
I don't know, because I feel like. Sure, on one hand, there's the whole negative connotation, but there's also the fact that, think about it, there were a lot of Slytherins who worked in the Ministry of Magic in high positions.
To be fair, everybody works in the Ministry of Magic. There's, very limited,
job
opportunities as a wizard.
That aren't in the Ministry.
Well, you're either an entrepreneur, an athlete, or you're in the Ministry. Or a doctor, I guess.
I mean, yeah, it's...
The hospital's probably micromanaged by the Ministry anyway.
Everything's micromanaged by the Ministry, except for Hogwarts. Which is currently.
They definitely tried. Didn't work out too well for them. Turns out managing adults and managing children, completely different skill sets. Who knew? But, it's one of those things where it's just sort of yeah, you are, I think zoologist is another one. I think we've gotten 5 different job basics that you can actually do. You're either cleaning up messes in some way, shape, or form with the Ministry, actively dealing with magical creatures and animals and stuff, and preventing them from being discovered by the Muggles. Oh, you can be a teacher. We got 6. You can be a staff member at Hogwarts.
There's way more staff positions at Hogwarts than just the 6. There's a bunch of side classes and electives.
Oh no, I wasn't. I was doing a broad generalization in terms of job opportunity.
Oh, job opportunity.
Yeah.
That's what we were talking about. I thought you were saying.
You zoned out a little bit through my mad ramblings and then came back in and got confused. To be fair, you could listen to me you can listen to me through the whole conversation.
I could pay attention the whole time and still get lost.
I'm lost. I zoned out. I know we're trying to wrap up potentially.
How far have we actually gotten into this?
Right now we're about 43 minutes.
Oh, that's plenty of
the usual time.
Yeah.
I feel like we could easily put the kibosh on this one because we've already gone pretty hardcore into this chapter as it is, which, to be fair, wasn't that long. Decent
it was
amount
very short.
Yeah. Though, to be fair, full-on, actual introduction. If I recall correctly, something that we don't get to touch on later is the first year boat trip and stuff along those lines is actually something that is how the seniors leave, apparently.
Huh. Weird.
Yeah, so,
Oh, that's pretty neat.
Also, apparently, I do like that Rowling, does the whole song and dance with the hat and everything. And I think it's almost 4 books before it actually gets re-mentioned again.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think she wants to...
It does.
Huh?
All the songs at the beginning.
I think the 5th one at the very least, because I do recall him mentioning...
It was the 4th because it mentions about, cooperation and stuff.
I thought that was mentioned after Voldemort came back.
No, I feel like we're talking about the Hogwarts song, right?
No. The Hogwarts song is re-mentioned, I think, during book 4. I was referring to the Sorting Hat song that he sings specifically.
Oh, that I don't.
With
remember.
all of the hat puns. I'll eat myself if you can find a more clever hat than me.
Because you
That was
know that
the
he doesn't see it in the second one because they came in through.
They came in late.
They
They
came in
didn't
late
get
because
to
of the
go to the
car.
banquet.
And they don't get to actually join the
In the
fetus.
third one, they come to the banquet late because they have to go. Harry has to go get chocolate, and Hermione has to get the time turner.
I think there was some sort of checkup or something along those lines because of the Dementor attack.
Yeah, that was Harry had to get chocolate.
So book 4
And then book
would
4, he was at the sorting for book 4.
Yeah, I don't think he actually was paying attention though in that one. It's one of those things where like I could be wrong. I'm not too hung up on it one way or the other. But I am pretty certain that it wasn't until after Voldemort's return that there was actually. Oh God! All right, we don't have the time to go over this. Kimmy can tell me whether I'm right or wrong next time we run around. So I feel like we should probably wrap things up for this chapter. Kimmy, if you want to. Plugs. Brandy is officially started going through her floss tubing thing.
Yep, you can find me at Brandywine Stitches on YouTube, or on the other socials, you can find me at Hockeytown Candle Co. because I make soy candles.
I will. All right. Well, it turns out book 4 is actually when we get the reverse back and stuff because Kimmy just flashed the actual limericks and everything.
Yep, and it says that it's a hat singing. But anyway, you can find me on social media on Luna's Creation Corner. Most notably on TikTok for however long that might last. If you're listening to this after whatever goes down, we may not have TikTok anymore, but hopefully
We'll keep you posted.
do.
Yeah.
We'll keep you posted from the past.
I finished up my Final Fantasy Rebirth game recently on Twitch, and I have basically just been faffing about playing Helldivers 2 and Dead by Daylight on streaming. I'm definitely thinking at some point in time, probably way too late for anybody to actually join in since this is being made like a couple of weeks in advance. I'm planning on doing Final Fantasy Crisis Core, the remake version for the PlayStation 5 at some point in time, and I'll probably start playing through on that. If you guys are interested in me going through a prequel for arguably one of my personal favorite JRPGs that was ever created. Anyway, I think we've already tagged ourselves in all the important things, so Kimmy, if you want to give us our signing out.
Oh, sure. I mean, one day one of you might do it, but until
it's
next
yours.
time, keep your wands at the ready.